Hey guys, thank you guys so much for the feedback on my last little ramble video. I was honestly really nervous when I uploaded because again, I'm not used to doing this stuff. But a lot of you guys seem to like it. A lot of you guys said that you like to hear me ramble about things that come to my mind. So I decided, why not do another one? And this one's kind of, sort of rant-ish, but like, I just feel like it's something that I should give my opinion on because I keep seeing it more and more with artists, especially really popular and influential artists, and I think it's just a stupid thing. I'm sorry, my dog decided that she wants to join in. Little stinker. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, basically, I've definitely seen this a lot with other artists, and to me, it's really stupid how these artists are so oblivious to the fact that this is not a thing. Basically, what I'm talking about is art style theft, pose theft, basically that whole shebang. And to me, it is the dumbest thing I have ever heard an artist complain about because it's not a thing. Like, you cannot steal an art style. Like, it's impossible to steal someone's art style. Like, and it's really dumb because I've seen some of these artists try to cite copyright law as a reason for them, for people to not reference their art style, and it just so happens that I have the copyright law up here on my phone, and according to this, I'm going to read this word for word, and you can look this up for yourself. Like, it says, copyright law protects finished works of art. It does not protect things like facts, ideas, procedures, or an artist's style, no matter how distinct. So, basically, according to copyright law, you cannot copyright an art style. You cannot legally do that. It is impossible. And yeah, I keep seeing more and more artists get super protective over people referencing their artwork, or people referencing their art style, or people like trying to use similar techniques to them, and it's like, it drives me crazy because these same people claim that they want to support the growth of other artists, or they want to see other artists improve, or they want to see other artists like get better at like their, or like make their own art style. But it's but then they'll do stuff like this where they'll get mad if somebody references their art style or is inspired by their art style, and then they claim that that's considered stealing their art style. And it's stupid, because that's not stealing an art. You can't steal an art style. And then I've asked some of these artists, like, what they consider art style theft to be, and they'll say, oh, it's when like someone takes a picture and you can put it like right next to yours and it looks exactly the same. Like it's like a mirror image, and I'm just sitting there like, but that's just tracing. Like, that's just tracing over the image, or just stealing the picture as a whole. That's not stealing your art style, that's stealing artwork. The only way you could steal an art style is if you traced over an image to make them 100% the same, and even then, that's not art style theft, that's just tracing over someone's artwork. Like, it baffles me how stupid some of these artists could be, and, like, I just feel like I kind of need to say something about it, because I've noticed artists that I'm friends with believe it's a thing, artists that I follow think it's a thing, and it's just not. And I feel like it's just, like, it's an after product thing of artists being super, super overprotective of their stuff, which, because, like, and I mean, I'm guilty of this. I was guilty of this when I was, like, when I was a young artist, but, like, and if this was just a bunch of little kids, like, being overprotective of their stuff because they don't know any better, or they're not getting into that phase where they start to take art more from a professional standpoint, then fine, whatever, I wouldn't talk about it and I wouldn't be as upset about it because they're a bunch of little kids, they don't know any better. But when I see, like, grown adults who claim to be professional artists and who claim to understand the art industry and who claim to understand art-related stuff, and then they get mad when somebody references their art style, like, doesn't even copy their art style, just references their art style, like, that kind of ticks me off a little bit, because clearly and then when they bring up copyright law, it's just even dumber, because it's like I just read, like, copyright law states you can only copyright your artwork, not your art style, no matter how distinct you think it is, no matter how unique you think your art style is, you cannot copyright it. You do not own an art style. That is impossible. It is legally not possible. I'm sorry if I'm getting, like, super upset about this, but it's just something that really bugs me, and I can't believe so many artists who claim to be professional get upset over stuff like this. In fact, oh boy, like, I've seen, in fact, I watch PK Russell a lot, which, if you haven't watched him, go watch him. He's a good dude. He's really funny. Like, I'll put a link to his channel in the description of this video, because I think he deserves some more love than he gets. But he made a video on his channel where an artist got upset because somebody who wanted to commission them asked them if they could attempt to, like, emulate someone's style. Like, basically just, I don't know if emulate's the right word, but basically they just wanted to see how this artist's interpretation of another artist's style. They weren't mean, they weren't rude, they just said, hey, I was going to commission this artist, but their commissions are closed, or their commissions, like, are not within my price range at the moment. And they said, and I thought your art looked cool, and I was wondering if I could see your interpretation of this artist's style with my D&D character. And it was like, okay, that's a simple request for a commission. That seems simple enough. Like, I would do that. Like, that's not a horrible thing to ask. And they're like, and again, they weren't, like, being mean, hateful, or rude. They were just asking the artist if they could emulate someone's art style. And the artist, instead of just, telling the client, like, oh no, I'm not comfortable with doing that, or oh no, I don't really like replicating other people's art styles, they decided to take a screenshot of the email, post it on Twitter, and then lose their gosh darn mind over the fact that this person dared to ask them to, like, draw someone else's art style. Like, how dare you tell me, a professional artist, to replicate someone's art style? And it's like, that made me really, really mad. And I was and in all fairness, I'm kind of glad PK Russell called her out on it, because that behavior is not okay, especially when you're claiming to be a professional artist. Like, that is just something you don't do as a professional artist who's taking commissions. You do not bash your clients on a public social media website. Like, especially when that person, oh my god, like, this stuff just baffles me. Like, I don't get it. And then it was really dumb because some people did call this artist out on Twitter, like, from what I've seen. Some people did tell her that she was overreacting and that she should have just told the client, like, no, I'm not comfortable with doing that, and move on. And then they said that it felt like she was kind of forcing people to dogpile on this person for asking an innocent question about a commission. And she was like, oh, no, it's not dogpiling. And then you go through all the other comments, and she's, like, joining in with all these other people saying that the client was a horrible person, and that, like, how dare they ask another artist to draw in a different style? Like, how dare they want to pay an artist to do something for them? Like, how, like, that is just unheard of in the art community. Like, how, like, what in the world is this person's issue? Like, and, like, that made me, it's just, like, that, I'm sorry, but how entitled do you have to be to where someone asking you if you will just draw, or attempt to draw, or draw your interpretation of a style, like, when someone asks you to do that, like, how entitled do you have to be to throw a Twitter tantrum about it, and then shame the client, which was going to pay you? It's not like they were being a choosing beggar, or they were being, being someone on for exposure. Like, they were going to pay you. They were probably the nicest client you'll ever get, like, 'cause not a lot of people are nice when it comes to commissions. And then you, like, because chances are you just lost a client by doing that. You lost a client because you're too immature and up your own butt to just handle it calmly and just tell the person that you don't do stuff like that. Even though I've noticed a lot of artists that do this, or a lot of artists that get upset about replicating art styles or copying art styles, are people who draw in a super cartoony style, like kind of like what I do, or kind of like what any other artist does. But you want to know something? I'm gonna let you in on like a big old secret here. You want to know something? Artists who think this way, artists who get upset that in the cartoon world people replicate and copy art styles. I'm just gonna give you a little tip here. When you join a career in the animation industry or the cartoon industry, one of your main focuses as a cartoonist or as an animator or whatever, one of your main things in that job will be to replicate art styles. Shocking, I know. Like, I can't believe it. Like literally, like, do you seriously think that, like, one cartoonist does all the work for a cartoon? Do you seriously think one animator does all the work for an animation? No. They hire a bunch of people who are able to replicate styles, so that way the cartoon and the art style of the cartoon and the animation style of the cartoon stays consistent. Like, and you don't see people losing their lid over them replicating art styles, because that's their job. It's their job as a cartoon person to do stuff like that. And I am so, it just baffles me how many of these artists just don't know this stuff. Like, and it just makes me really, really mad, because it's like, now there's all these young artists who are just starting out, who are scared to be inspired or to reference, like, somebody that they like, or reference something that they like, because some big shot artist is gonna tell them that they're stealing art styles, or that they're being a horrible person because they don't have their own art style, even though that's how you grow as an artist. That's how you develop your own style. You are inspired by other things. You are inspired by cartoons. You are inspired by other artists. Like, I'll give my story as an example. Like when I started out as an artist, I was inspired by an artist who at the time was called Shiny Eevee. She now goes by Poopom. I don't know what social media site she's active on. I know she has a DeviantArt, but again, I don't think she's that active on DeviantArt. But when I was developing my art style, I referenced and did a lot of stuff that Poopom did, or Shineevy did, but I wasn't attempting to steal her art style or copy her art style. Like, I was trying to develop my own style, and I just happened to reference some things that Poopom did in her art style. And if you look at some of my old art compared to her old art, you can definitely see some similarities. But after a while, I eventually started to get inspired by other things besides Poopom, and I began to develop my own art style. Like if you look at some of my art, you can kind of tell some of the things that inspire me. Like, the way I draw lips is, like, specifically for women and girls and stuff. Like, or like my Steven Universe characters. Like, there is another artist that I started to look up to. I think her name was The Great Cat or something like that. I know she used to be on DeviantArt. I don't know if she still is. But she was kind of well known for doing Steven Universe comics and for doing some MLP comics with the Dazzlings. But she would do this kind of cool thing, like with the lips of the characters from Steven Universe, like with Garnet and Amethyst and Pearl and all them. Like, kind of have like this she had like this sort of way that she drew lips, and I would attempt to, and I would reference that in some of my art, and you can kind of tell, like, I try to give lipstick, or at least different lip tones, to some of my female characters. Like, does that mean I stole her art style because I tried to replicate the way she draws lips? Of course not. Like, that's not a thing. Another thing is, if it isn't obvious, I'm very inspired by anime when it comes to drawing facial expressions. In fact, that's kind of how I got used to drawing facial expressions in my artwork, is I would try to replicate the facial expressions that I saw in anime that I started watching, specifically Soul Eater, Vampire Knight, Hellsing Ultimate, those animes. Does that mean that I stole their art? Does that mean that because I tried to replicate the way that they drew facial expressions in my artwork, does that mean that I stole their art style? No, of course not. That's not how this works. Like, that's not how anything works. And I'm honestly really, really tired of just seeing these artists get so upset over the fact that somebody is referencing their art style, and then they accuse it of being art style theft. Like, it's just not a thing. Like, I don't know how else I can express how much this is not a thing. And it also gets worse with super, super entitled artists, where, like, I think I heard one story where, crap, I just thought of it and now I lost it. Basically, an artist will, like, say you're a young artist, like, you're like kind of developing your own style, and you start drawing in a way that you think is fitting, and then all of a sudden some artist you never heard of or seen or whatever comments on your artwork and accuses you of being an art thief, or accuses you of stealing their art style, even though you've never seen anything by this artist before until they just commented on your stuff. Like, like stuff. It's stuff, stuff like that It's stuff like that that makes me mad, because it's like artists are getting so protective and so defensive of what they claim to be their original style or their original way of doing things, and they just constantly are it'll get to the point where they do stuff like I just said. They'll just attack random artists for even doing something slightly similar to them. In fact, I kind of have a story about this. I'm not gonna name any names, but because this happened a really, really long time ago, and the people who were involved in this, like, have changed their tone, they've changed their view on things, but, like, I think it's a good example. Basically, when I was still kind of getting used to drawing things and getting used to drawing digital art, I was friends with this one person. I'm just gonna call him P. And P kind of had a similar style to this other artist, except she didn't know who this artist was. I did, but she didn't know this other artist. And I believe, for the most part, she was inspired by my artwork, because some of the stuff she did was similar to me, and again, because I don't believe art style theft is a thing, I didn't get mad about it. In fact, I was kind of happy if she was inspired by me. But then this other artist whose art was similar to her, and in fact, I think at one point she made two characters where one looked like a demon and the other looked like an angel, I believe. And this other artist also had an angel and a demon character. So this other artist, who was a lot more popular than my friend, because she literally had just been on DeviantArt for like a couple months, I believe. And this other artist kind of came to her and started accusing her of stealing her art style and stealing her characters, even though the characters were completely different. Like the character, like, you could put the characters side by side and see some similarities, but for the most part, they were completely different characters. And, but it turned into, like, this huge ordeal, because the artists, okay, like, if it was just the artist, like, for just commenting on her stuff, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But this artist decided to go to her large following and make several journals and status posts and just several things where she was essentially bullying P, and it wasn't okay. It was not okay at all. Like, she made journals accusing her of being an art thief. She made journals accusing her of stealing her characters' designs. There was one point where she took the characters that she thought that P was copying from her and literally, like, made a hateful picture where she, like, I think it was, like, one of her characters had dumped paint onto the other characters, and like, basically the paint was made to look like P's characters, and according to her, that proved that she was copying her characters, and it was so stupid. It was very immature, and it was especially immature because I think at the time this artist was like 19, 20 years old, and we were like 14, 15 at the time, and it was like you'd expect this stuff from a kid, but not from like a grown adult who should know better, who's like in college and trying to make it in the world as a professional artist. But and then it got dumber because it just kept going on and on and on. And then at one point, P just kind of gave up on trying to reason with this chick and literally deleted half of her gallery because she was tired of all these white knights and all of these hate and all these fans from this popular artist coming to her page and basically calling her an art thief, telling her she was a horrible person for replicating another style of a popular artist, like all this. And she wasn't on DeviantArt for the longest time. Like, she refused to do anything on DeviantArt for the longest time. And then eventually she did start posting again, but this time she had to force herself to draw differently. She had to force herself to draw in a style that she didn't like, all because this popular artist sent hate towards her, all because she thought she was stealing, and in reality it was a complete misunderstanding and the artist overreacted. It's stuff like that. It's stuff like that that just makes me mad whenever I see artists get upset over stuff like this. It's just really, really dumb, and it's really immature on the artist's part. It's unprofessional, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of backlash for calling some people out on this and for kind of ranting about this. But I feel like this needs to be said. These popular artists can get mad at me all they want, but what I'm saying, I believe, is true. Art style theft is not a thing, and the fact that so many artists think it's a thing, is just the dumbest thing it's just so dumb. I don't understand how this started. I don't understand why so many people believe that this garbage is a thing. Why? I'm going on tangents. I'm sorry, but I remember there's I think another example. I'm gonna give the name of this artist to make a point, but again, I don't follow this artist as of recent, and I don't know if she still holds these beliefs or whatever. But I'm going to I'm gonna ask that you guys don't go and hate on any of the artists I mentioned in this video or whatever. Just don't hate on any of the artists that I'm using as an example. Cause again, like I said, I don't know if this specific artist that I'm about to mention still holds these beliefs. But does anybody remember Rabornica when they were, I'm calling them they because I've heard things about Rabornica, and I don't want to offend anybody or them. So, but does anybody remember when Rabornica was super popular, when the FNAF fandom was just starting to become a thing, say circa when the first 2 games came out? And there was a lot of controversy with Rabornica's fandom. In case you've been living under a rock, while you were in the fandom, Rabornica was very popular for her FNAF AU. Specifically, she was very popular for her interpretation of the purple guy, whose name was Vincent, and he had a ponytail, and he liked toast, and he was scared of needles, stuff like that. Yeah, you can just Google him. He was one of the most popular figures. He was one of the most popular fan interpretations in the FNAF fandom. But Rabornica's fandom And I want to say by extension Rabornica, but again, I'm not 100% sure if Rabornica thought the same way. Like, I didn't keep track of Rabornica after they left the fandom, and after they just stopped drawing FNAF related stuff. But their fandom was a toxic one, and anybody will tell you that. Because basically Rabornica's fandom had one side where if you didn't do exactly what Rabornica did, because for whatever reason her fandom thought that she was like the goddess of FNAF and that her AU was completely canon to everything in the FNAF fandom, if you didn't follow anything close to her AU, then you were told that your interpretations were wrong and that you needed to be more like Rabornica. Like it happened to me, where my interpretation of Mike and Jeremy at the time when I was in the fandom was Jeremy was kind of a tough guy, like didn't really take a lot of crap. He didn't he was like the tough guy essentially. And then Mike was the scaredy cat who would pee his pants just looking at an animatronic. And I would get so many comments from Rabornica's fans where they would tell me that my interpretations were wrong, and they would say, like, no, Mike is supposed to be the tough guy, and Jeremy is supposed to be the shy one, or the scaredy cat one. And I'm like, but I'm not Rabornica. Why should I give a crap what Rabornica does? Like, why should that affect what I do in the fandom? Like, did she make FNAF? No, so why should I care? But then there were the other ones where if you drew in a similar style to her, or you drew her interpretations of the characters, or if you tried to draw any sort of fan-related stuff to her art, unless it was just fan art, like say if you did like a shipping picture of the characters, or if you tried to, or if you were inspired by Rabornica's art style and you tried to replicate their art style or whatever, like, then there would be the other side of her fandom that would lose their minds at you and start fussing and screaming, telling you that you're like stealing her art style and that you're a horrible person for doing so because she works so hard and blah 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 blah, like stuff like that. And then I think the worst case scenario I've seen for this was with an artist called FNAF Nations. I don't know the entire situation behind this, but from what I've heard, basically Rabornica, I've heard some people say Rabornica didn't get involved, and I've heard some people say that Rabornica, like Rabornica did get involved and that she was upset, they were upset about this. And, oh goodness. Basically, FNAF Nations drew in a style very, very, very similar to Rabornica's. And the reason she did that was because she said, I think, in my opinion, I think the reason she did it was to kind of keep the feel of the characters similar to Rabornica, but she did not take credit for the style. She credited Rabornica for the characters. She credited Rabornica for the art style that she used. She like did not take credit for anything in that entire in her entire gallery. Like, the only thing she took credit for was the artwork. She did not take credit for the style or for the characters that were used in her artwork. And funny enough, like I think like when I think when it just got so stupid because people were mad that she was using Rabornica's art style. And again, according to copyright law, you do not own an art style, no matter how distinct it is. Doesn't matter. Like, you legally do not own it. You cannot legally own an art style. Just saying. But But people got mad at her and started accusing her of being an art thief. I think at one point they accused her of tracing, like, Rabornica's artwork, even though I've looked through her gallery and I don't remember seeing any traced artwork. Because again, I watched this person. I've seen their artwork. I don't think it looked like they didn't trace. I think at most they just replicated the art style. And then, but like, it just got worse and worse. People were accusing her of being an art thief. I think I saw in, when I was watching Ponder Sprocket's video about the Spockter situation, and they were talking about, like, how they were basically saying Spockter was horrible for calling out an art thief, and they were showing Penegrin and Story's tweets calling out art thieves, essentially, like, sending hate to art thieves on Twitter. I think I saw even Penegrin was, like, calling out FNAF Nations and calling them an art thief for replicating an art style. And, like, she just received so much hate that I didn't understand it. Like, and this was all over just her using the same art style as Rabornica. Even though, again, Rabornica themselves doesn't own their art style. And it just baffled me. It really baffled me. And then it got bad where people sent her death threats at one point, and like we're making journals about her and telling everybody that, like, oh, don't talk to her and don't give her watchers. You need to report her because she's an art thief because she's replicating Rabornica's art style. And then one day, FNAF Nation just deactivated her account on DeviantArt. Like, she just left DeviantArt and stopped posting art. Like, and I felt really bad for her because literally she said the only thing she wanted to do was to just have fun and make arts and just make art in a similar style to Rabornica's. But of course, like, if you dare to replicate a style in the art community, you're a horrible, horrible person, and you might as well just not exist in the art community. But yeah, but that was kind of the final nail in the coffin for me when it came to Rabornica, because I was just like, I can't enjoy Rabornica's work anymore because their fandom is toxic as all heck, and I can't support that. Like, I don't, like, again, I'm not gonna blame Rabornica themselves for this, because, in all honesty, nobody chooses their fandom, nobody chooses the audience that they get, so, for the most part, it's not Rabornica's fault that this happened, as far as I'm aware, but, like, I don't, like, it's just, like, to me, it's the perfect example of just the mentality that a lot of people have when it comes to art theft and art styles. Like, it's just a stupid thing that shouldn't exist. It's a stupid mentality that artists shouldn't have because it's toxic towards other artists, and it's preventing other artists from growing and from improving, and I just think it's stupid. Like, I know I've said this like 1,000 times, and I know I'm rambling on for what feels like forever, but it just is. It's just, I don't understand how a community can claim that they support growth and that they support people improving as artists, yet they believe in garbage like art style theft, or believe in garbage like pose theft, which that's a whole other topic in on itself, and I've already talked for way, way too long. But like they believe in stuff like that, which prevents artists from developing their own art styles and prevents artists from becoming who they are. Like, cause like I'll tell you one thing. If you went to some of these artists that believe art style theft is a thing, and who don't like people referencing their art styles, I bet if you went to them and asked them what inspires them, like I bet they'll tell you that they just didn't, that they weren't just created, like they were just born the age they were, and that they were just able to develop their art style all on their own without being inspired by anything. Like I'm just, like, because that's the dumb thing, is, like, they act like being inspired by other art styles can't possibly be a thing. Like, they act like that it has to be art theft if it is a thing. But that's not true, because how the heck, like, just let me ask you, how the heck did you develop your art style? Did you sit under a rock and it just came to your head? No, you were inspired by other things that helped you develop your art style. Like, for example, and I'm, I hope what I'm saying about these artists, I hope what I'm saying doesn't sound mean when I say this or offensive or anything. But Ponder Sprocket, I love Ponder Sprocket, by the way. Hail Octomama. But like, you can tell that her, like from her art style, that she is inspired by different things. And the thing that I notice that she's inspired by the most, not like it's a big secret, but the thing she's inspired by the most is comic books. Like, you can look at most of her artwork, and you can tell that she has kind of adapted a comic book-esque style, like superhero comic book-esque style, to her artwork. And I honestly really like it. It's a cool style to be inspired by. Or like Atlas White on DeviantArt. I'll put a link to all these people in the description. But Atlas White has kind of a Tim Burton-y style when they draw certain characters. Like it's not exactly Tim Burton's art style. Like, there are still aspects of it that are different, but like kind of like the sort of sketchy, like wide-eyed characters. Like she has like it has a Tim Burton feel to it. Or there's a lot of artists that draw in the style of an anime that they like. It's not exactly the same style as the anime. You can still see other parts of it that were inspired by different things, but you can still kind of see the bare bones of what inspired them to begin with. Or I'm trying to think of like other artists that have distinct art styles where you can tell like what inspired them to make or what helped them develop their art style. Lavender Town, I guess, on YouTube. Like, I've heard some people say she kind of has a she has like Tim Burton-y, like kind of overly cutesy, cartoony style, where it's like, yeah, you could argue that her style is 100% original, but at the same time, if you asked her what inspired her, she would probably tell you that it was a plethora of different things that inspired her art style, and that after she probably tells you what inspires her, you could probably be able to point out some of the things in her style of like what inspired her. The reason I'm bringing these artists up, the reason I'm bringing Ponder Sprocket and all of them up, is because they're perfect examples of just because you reference something, just because you reference an art style, or because you're inspired by an art style, that does not mean that they are stealing the styles of the things that they are inspired by. Because, again, legally, you do not own your style. Because it doesn't matter how distinct or how original or how much you think your art style stands out. Legally, in copyright law, you cannot own your art style. And you cannot go to court with somebody because you think they referenced your art style. That is not something you can do. If the person stole your artwork, that's a different story. But even then, that's not stealing your art style, that's just stealing your work in general. And I think that's all I have to say on the matter. I think this video has gone on long enough. I'm sorry if this video is like super ranty and super just angry, I guess. But this is just something I felt like that I should talk about because it's a mentality that I'm continuing to see more and more and more with artists, and I hate it. Like, I hate this mentality. I hate this toxic mentality that a lot of artists seem to have. And if you have an opinion on art style theft, like whether you think it's a thing or whether you don't think it's a thing, please comment and tell me your thoughts below. I'm kind of interested to hear about that. But thanks so much for watching. If you did, I'm sorry if you thought this video was annoying in any way, shape, or form. I'm still getting used to doing stuff like this, and let me know what other topics you'd like me to talk about, either in the comments or you can send me a note on DeviantArt, which I'll link in the description. And thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.